Right now, millions of people are drinking whey protein. It can be found in gyms, supermarkets, and kitchens everywhere, from professional bodybuilders to people who simply want to add more protein to their diet. But the strange thing is that this industry was built from something many factories once tried to get rid of. For years, the amount of whey produced after the cheese-making process was so large that disposing of it became a major challenge for the dairy industry. So what transformed this seemingly worthless liquid into a multi-billion-dollar industry? To understand why whey protein became so valuable today, we have to go back to a much older industry, cheese making. For thousands of years, whenever people turned milk into cheese, they also produced a large amount of leftover liquid called whey. At the time, cheese was the valuable product, while whey was considered little more than a byproduct. For centuries, people paid very little attention to it. In some places, whey was used to feed livestock, while in others it was incorporated into food. But most of the whey produced still had very little economic value. It was not until the 20th century, when nutritional science began to advance and researchers gained a better understanding of what was inside whey, that the way people viewed this liquid started to change. Long before whey protein became a familiar product on nutrition store shelves, every time people made cheese, they always ended up with two things. One was cheese, the product that was sold, traded, and widely consumed. The other was a pale yellow liquid called whey. Thousands of years ago, when the first herders discovered that milk could be transformed into a food that lasted much longer, cheese quickly became a valuable commodity. It was easy to transport, easy to store, and could help feed people during times of food shortages. But every batch of cheese also produced a large amount of whey. While cheese was highly sought after, the remaining liquid received very little attention. For centuries, whey was simply the leftover material that remained after the main job was done. What would you do if your factory produced thousands of liters of liquid every day, but almost nobody wanted to buy it? That was exactly the situation many cheese manufacturers once faced. The more cheese they produced, the more whey they generated. In many places, whey was simply discarded. That may sound harmless, but whey contains large amounts of lactose and other organic compounds. When released into rivers, lakes, or other water sources, it can promote bacterial growth and reduce the amount of dissolved oxygen in the water. Over time, dealing with these enormous volumes of whey became one of the most difficult challenges facing the dairy industry. But there was something important that scientists gradually began to realize. The liquid that many factories were trying to get rid of was not useless at all. Inside whey was a mixture of protein, lactose, minerals, and many other nutrients that originally came from milk. While most of the protein in milk ends up in cheese in the form of casein, another important portion remains in the whey. For many years, the value of these proteins was largely overlooked simply because no one had an efficient way to separate them at a reasonable cost. But as nutritional science advanced, researchers began to gain a better understanding of what whey contained. That led to a new question. If whey contained so many valuable nutrients, was it really a waste product after all? If whey was not completely useless, then why did people not make better use of it sooner? The simple answer is that turning whey into a valuable product was not easy. For much of the 20th century, many dairy plants did not have the technology needed to separate the protein or other nutrients found in whey. Instead of throwing it away completely, some whey began to be used as animal feed, especially for pigs. Because it contains lactose, minerals, and a certain amount of protein, whey could provide an inexpensive source of energy for livestock. For many cheese manufacturers, this was the most practical solution at the time. Whey was no longer considered pure waste, but it was still far from being viewed as a high-value product. However, that was about to change. Whey itself did not change. What changed was the way people looked at it. During the second half of the 20th century, as nutritional science advanced rapidly, researchers began taking a closer look at what whey contained. They discovered that this overlooked liquid was rich in high-quality proteins and essential amino acids that the body needs to build and maintain muscle. It was a major turning point. Instead of viewing whey simply as a byproduct of cheesemaking, scientists began to see it as a valuable source of nutrition that was being wasted. The only problem was figuring out how to recover those proteins efficiently. And that question paved the way for new technologies that would completely change the future of whey in the years that followed. A treasure is only valuable if you have a way to extract it. And that was exactly the challenge facing the dairy industry. Scientists knew that whey contained valuable proteins, but knowing that was one thing. Recovering those proteins on an industrial scale was another. Factories needed a way to separate protein from water, lactose, and other components without damaging the valuable nutrients inside. The breakthrough came when modern filtration technologies began to be widely adopted throughout the dairy industry. Instead of treating whey as a difficult liquid to dispose of, manufacturers could now separate and concentrate its most valuable proteins. For the first time, whey could be transformed into a protein-rich ingredient on an industrial scale. New technology helped make whey valuable. But it was not until whey met the right moment that everything truly took off. During the 1970s and 1980s, bodybuilding and fitness culture began growing rapidly in the United States and many other countries. At the same time, research in sports nutrition increasingly highlighted the importance of protein for muscle growth and recovery. For people who trained regularly, whey was almost an ideal choice. It contains all the essential amino acids and is absorbed by the body relatively quickly. As more athletes and gym-goers began using whey protein, demand continued to rise. What was once a byproduct of the cheese industry was now appearing on the shelves of nutrition stores and gradually became a familiar symbol of the modern fitness world. As the fitness industry continued expanding, whey protein became more than just a supplement used by professional athletes. It gradually entered mainstream culture. Health clubs, bodybuilding magazines, and later online fitness communities all helped spread the idea that protein was an essential part of an active lifestyle. Manufacturers responded by introducing flavored powders, ready-to-drink shakes, and a growing variety of whey products designed for different goals. By the early 21st century, whey protein had become one of the best-selling nutritional supplements in the world. What had once been considered little more than a waste liquid from cheesemaking had successfully transformed into a multi-billion-dollar global industry. As demand skyrocketed, a new question emerged. How do you turn the millions of liters of whey produced every day into the tubs of whey protein found on store shelves? The answer lies inside modern processing facilities. Today, the journey of whey begins at cheese plants, where the liquid once considered a byproduct is collected instead of discarded. Through a series of filtration, concentration, and drying processes, the protein is separated from the water and other components to create the nutrient-rich powder we are familiar with today. It is a process that passes through multiple stages and often multiple facilities. But at its core, the entire industry is doing something remarkably simple: turning something that was once considered a burden into a high-value product. Interestingly, whey protein was not the only thing that changed. The way people think about protein has changed as well. In the past, protein was mostly associated with bodybuilding and sports nutrition. Today, it can be found everywhere, from breakfast cereals and yogurt to a wide variety of snack foods. Many people want more protein to help maintain muscle as they age, support weight loss, or simply stay full for longer. At the same time, fitness and exercise culture continues to grow around the world, driving even greater demand for protein-rich products. As a result, something that was once considered a waste product of the cheese industry has become part of a multi-billion-dollar nutrition market. And that demand shows little sign of slowing down. Looking back at this entire journey, perhaps the most remarkable thing is that whey itself never really changed. It is still the liquid that remains after cheese is made. What changed was the way people saw it. There was a time when whey was considered waste. There was a time when it was used mainly as animal feed. And today, it has become one of the most popular nutritional products in the world. The story of whey is a reminder that value is not always determined by what something is, but sometimes by how well people understand it. Perhaps there are still things all around us that are being overlooked today, just as whey was overlooked for much of its history. And who knows? One of the next great industries of the future may begin with something that hardly anyone pays attention to right now. If you enjoy stories about how ordinary things quietly shape the world around us, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next video.